In this video, I'm going to be explaining how God creates reality. And I realized that just by using the word God, I'm taking a giant risk because this word is extremely taboo. There's hundreds of different meanings and interpretations for the word God. If you ask 100 different people, you're going to get 100 different answers. And many people will just immediately write me off as some kind of religious nutcase just by simply using the word God. And I wanted to make it very clear right from the beginning of this video that I am not a religious person. I am not trying to feed you some kind of ideology or dogma or belief system. Merely what I'm trying to do is share with you some very deep and profound insights that I've gained from my own contemplative practices, from my own spiritual work that I've been doing. I've been practicing meditation and contemplation for over 6 years now. And I've read many different books about this topic from many different perspectives. So I've read Christian books, Muslim books, Hindu books, Buddhist books, Zen books, non-secular books, scientific books. So I've studied this topic from many different perspectives because I don't like when people just only study one perspective and then just try and tell you that that one perspective is the ultimate truth. That's not what I'm interested in doing here. I'm actually going beyond all perspectives, and I'm just explaining to you what I've been able to discover in my own direct experience. So everything I say in this video can be verified by you by doing the proper contemplative techniques such as meditation, self-inquiry, even using psychedelics in the proper way. Then all of these truths can be verified by you in your own direct experience. So I don't want you to just believe me blindly. I want you to just take these ideas as a temporary hypothesis, and I want to see if you can maybe prove them true or false in your own direct experience. All right, now that we got that out of the way, what do I mean when I say the word God? Now, I hope you understand this is a very profound and amazing topic to talk about, how all of reality is being created. This is the most important question that exists. And this is the only thing that I love to think about and love to contemplate and learn about. So this isn't some philosophical theory that, maybe Adam knows what he's talking about, maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about, but at the end of this video, it's going to be a waste of time. This isn't going to be a waste of time. This is actually a very practical and useful topic if you can read between the lines and if you can keep an open mind. All right, so this video here is so difficult for me to make because this topic is so taboo that I need to dance around all of your egotistical defense mechanisms that your mind will create. So as the speaker here, in order for me to ensure that you actually receive this message and that you don't misinterpret it or misconstrue what I'm saying, I need to proactively go into your mind, realize all of the ways that you're going to misinterpret, to demonize what I'm saying, to deny what I'm saying, and I need to proactively answer all of your questions and all of your misinterpretations before you even have them. So bear with me here, keep an open mind, and I'm going to be trying my best to explain what is probably one of the most difficult and paradoxical topics that a human being can explain. But anyways, let's get right into it. So what do I mean when I say the word God? Well, over all of human history, there have been many different words that have been used to point to the ultimate truth or the supreme reality. Words such as universe, which with a capital U, or cosmos with a capital C. Brahman, Allah, Yahweh, Vishnu, Mu, emptiness, nothingness, source, love, reality, existence, the self, awareness, the uncreated, the absolute truth, the one, void, infinity, creator, being, consciousness, pure experience. These are all words that human beings have used to try to point to the ultimate truth, the ultimate reality. Now consider that the ultimate reality, the ultimate truth, cannot be encapsulated in language or with words. And that is why it is so difficult to communicate, because I'm trying to point your awareness in a certain direction, but I can't directly explain what I'm trying to point you towards. So I can't tell you what God is, because God is everything at once. God is infinity. Any word that I use to explain God, that word itself is limited. It's a limited symbol. And it will not be what I'm actually trying to explain. All right? So these are all words, they're all pointers to the absolute reality, the one truth. God, you could say. Now, in order to help you to get to understand this concept of God, first of all, you're going to need to put aside any preconceived notions that you have about what God is. So whatever your priest told you, put that aside. Whatever your mom told you, put that aside. Whatever Elon Musk told you or the scientists on YouTube told you, put that aside. Whatever your guru told you, just put that aside for now. You can come back to those ideas later, but for now, just it's important to have a blank slate. All right? So whenever we're trying to understand how the universe was created, we need to go back to the very beginning. And I'm not just talking about the beginning of time, but I'm talking about the beginning of everything. We need to go right to the place where nothing has been created yet. We need to start in the very beginning of existence. So with your mind, imagine that nothing has been created. There are no ideas, there's no laws of physics, there's no limitations at all. So imagine what was there before the Big Bang. There's no physics, there's no gravity, there's no laws of the universe, there's no mathematics, there's no science, there's no religions, there's no ideas, there's no laws, there's no rules or limitations of any kind. The beginning is just pure nothingness, pure emptiness, nothing at all. No limitations or rules or categories have been created yet. Now this nothingness is so interesting because if you contemplate the qualities of pure nothingness, not the idea of nothingness like a vast empty space, that's just an idea of nothingness, but actual nothingness has no qualities whatsoever and is also equivalent to infinity. Because nothingness is unlimited, it has no limitation, it is also infinity. It is infinite possibility. So stay with me here. I know it's a little bit philosophical. These are tough concepts, but I'm trying my best here. Nothingness, which is at the beginning of everything, before anything has been created at all. You have nothingness. And this nothingness is unlimited. It is not bound by any kind of limitation or barrier. Because nothing exists. So there is nothing to limit nothingness from also being infinity. It's unlimitedness. That's what infinity is. The lack of limitation. No limits or bounds at all. Think about it like this. If you were to draw a circle with a diameter which is equal to 0. So if you draw a circle, the diameter is the space from one side of the circle to the other side of the circle. Imagine you could draw a circle with the diameter equal to 0. How would that circle look? It would just look like a blank page. I'll show you how that circle would look. If I drew a circle with a diameter equal to 0, it would look exactly like this. All right? There is no circle. Okay? The diameter is equal to 0. Now, also, if I drew a circle with a diameter equal to infinity, an infinite diameter, there's no end to this circle. How would that circle look? It would look exactly like this. There is no end to this circle. You couldn't ever draw the end of that circle because infinity keeps going forever. So with this simple analogy, I've just proven that nothingness is equal to infinity. And that's kind of a twisted, tricky topic that a lot of people have trouble grasping. But let's get back to my notes here. Here they are. So nothingness equals infinity. And this infinity is what God is. This non-duality. So emptiness and infinite potentiality are merged into one whole. And that's what God is. God is nothingness and everythingness at the exact same time. Because, again, where is the separation between nothing and everything? If we go back to before all ideas were invented, before all categories were invented, there is no separation between anything at all. So there is no difference between nothing and everything. That is only something that the human mind constructs. Only to a human mind is there a difference between nothing and everything. Only to a human mind is there a difference between a tree and a dog, between a human and an alien, between the earth and Jupiter. Only to the human mind do these categories and differences exist. But if we go to the land before all categories have ever been invented, what we have is just one infinite singularity. Without any separation at all. 0 and 1 are equal to each other, and you have non-duality. Which means no distinction, no separation of any kind. Pure, integrated infinity and oneness. All right, I hope you're still with me here. This is the default state of existence. This is what God is. This is what you could also call the Godhead. This is pure, infinite potentiality. Now, let's get to the meat of the topic, which is from this pure, infinite potentiality, which is nothingness and everything at the exact same time, how does that turn into a world with trees and cars and roads and people and games and all kinds of things? How do we get from nothingness to a world? Well, this infinite singularity, God, you could call it, has every possible quality that a human mind has. So God has intelligence. God has desires. God has will. You think only a human being can have intelligence? You think only a human being can have desires? Or only a human being can have will? Since God is everything, how could a human being have something that God itself doesn't have? So if God literally is everything, how can a human being have intelligence but God not have intelligence? Or how could a human being have will but God not have will? So all of the qualities that you think are only available to humans are available to God. So that's why I love thinking of God as a mind. God is like one infinite mind. And just like a human mind, God has these qualities such as intelligence, such as desire, such as will. And imagine if you were an infinite being that literally could become any possible thing. You are everything at once. The mechanism that God uses to create reality is pure imagination. So, in order for something to exist, to be created by God, all God has to do is just imagine it. Kind of like a dream. So, if I asked you, how many dreams is possible for a human being to have? You would think about it and say, well, there is no limitation to the amount of dreams that a human being could have, because the space of imagination is infinite. There's an infinite possibility of dreams that a human being could have. So God wants to experience itself in a particular tangible way. So the problem with being infinity is that you can never experience yourself directly. And this is a serious problem, because if I am everything at once, how could I ever have the experience of eating a chocolate bar? Because in order for me to have the experience of eating a chocolate bar, I need to first imagine that I am a separate entity and that the chocolate is separate from me so that I can actually enjoy its taste. See how God has this problem where God can't experience itself unless it segments and separates itself into many different parts. Just like, for example, when you're having a dream at night, the only way you can have a dream of, let's say, you're having sex with a beautiful partner. In order for you to experience the magnificence of that experience, you need to first imagine that you are not dreaming. You need to forget that you are the creator of the dream. You need to forget that the dream is happening only in your mind, so that it feels real, so that you can fully enjoy the sex that you're having. If you're having sex with a beautiful partner in your dream, but the whole time in the back of your mind you know that it's a dream, it's not as fun. It's not as interesting. It's basically just masturbation. But if you can deceive yourself, if you can trick yourself into thinking that this dream experience is actually real, and that you are a human being, and that your sexy partner is separate from you, now we can fully experience the full scope of emotions of sexual intercourse. Because I've separated myself from my partner, now I can experience the love and bliss of sex, because in the back of my mind, I'm not thinking the whole time that it's just a dream. So in this same way, this is how God needs to experience itself. It needs to imagine that it is not God. So in order for God to have the experience of a human being eating a pizza, what God has to do is it has to first forget that it is God. Because here's the problem with being God, is that nothing is outside of you. There is nowhere for you to go to not be God. You can't hide from yourself because you're literally infinity. You're every single thing at once. So this is a serious problem for God. Because how can God not be God? It's impossible. So the only way for God to get outside of itself, the only way for God to be a human being eating pizza, in order for God to create that, it must imagine that it is not God. It must forget that it is God. It has to impose limitations on itself. It needs to create the mind of a human being, and it needs to inject it with all kinds of fear and worries and insecurity and separation, the illusion of separation. God needs to trick itself in order to be separate from itself. So you as a human being, you have the beautiful opportunity to go and eat a piece of pizza. God itself has trouble doing that while it's in its infinite state. So what God has done is it has created you so that you can eat pizza, so that God can have the experience of eating pizza. And that's how God creates the world. It creates the world by simply imagining that it is not God, in the same way where when you're dreaming at night, you imagine an entire world. I personally always go to different countries in my dreams. Some nights I go to India, other nights I go to Costa Rica. The only way that I can do that is if while I'm dreaming, I am forgetting that I'm dreaming. I'm forgetting that really this whole country of India is only being imagined by my mind. And then once I forget that, now I can enjoy India. Now I can go get some curry. I can go talk to spiritual gurus. I can go swim in the ocean. I can actually do those things because I've forgotten that this whole India is just in my imagination. Because when you are aware that everything is just being imagined by you, that's what's called a lucid dream. And once you have a lucid dream, all of the stakes, there's no more stakes. You can't die. Nothing seems real anymore. Nothing is important. And that's why after you have a lucid dream, after a couple minutes, you just wake up. Because there's no point of dreaming anymore. So God has this kind of divine longing to experience its own beauty and its own majesty, its own infinity. Imagine the most beautiful sunset in the most beautiful country with the most beautiful landscape that you can even imagine. Imagine mountains and lush jungle and rivers and wild animals and clouds in the sky. Imagine how spectacular that view is. That is only the tiniest fraction of God's beauty, because God is infinity. And God wants to know what it means to be infinity. God wants to experience itself directly, because you can't be infinity unless you actualize your potential by incarnating into physical form, quote unquote physical form. There really is no such thing as physical form, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. So if God wants to experience itself being a kangaroo, it first needs to pretend that it is a kangaroo. And what it means to be a kangaroo is that it's not a giraffe. And it's not a human being. And it's not a turtle. And it's not a blade of grass. So God needs to take itself from the infinite potentiality, and it needs to particularize itself. It needs to make itself finite. It needs to give itself qualities like brown hair and a pouch and long legs to jump on and a long tail so that it can become a kangaroo. God itself, in its infinite form, in its pure form, has no qualities at all. It's not brown, it's not hairy, it's not tall, it's not short, it's nothing. It's none of that. So in order for God to be something, it needs to give itself qualities. And a big sacrifice is made when God does that. Because in order for God to experience itself as a kangaroo, it needs to sacrifice the experience of a giraffe. And it needs to sacrifice the experience of a turtle and a possum and a platypus. But that's what needs to happen. That's the mechanism of creation. God creates by forgetting itself. Now let's talk about the difference between involution and evolution. So Ken Wilber talks about this fantastic concept called involution and evolution. So most of us are familiar with evolution, where something that's very simple and basic grows and becomes more complex and more whole and more integrated, and it becomes more full. That's evolution, becomes more advanced. It raises a tier of evolution. It's like a Charmander evolving into a Charmeleon. It's evolving into a Charizard. If you play Pokemon, you'll know what I'm saying. It's like you're evolving, you're growing, right? But what many spiritual schools talk about, and what Ken Wilber talks about, is not just evolution, but involution. So where evolution is going from something simple like an atom, and then evolving into a molecule, and then evolving into a cell, and then evolving into an organ tissue, and then evolving into a human being, and then evolving into an entire ecosystem, an entire planet, and then eventually we evolve all the way up until we become infinity. That's the highest potential of evolution. But Ken Wilber also talks about involution, which is the infinite potentiality actually not becoming more evolved, but becoming less evolved and actually going down rungs. So if you can imagine evolution like you're climbing a ladder, right? Involution would be going down the ladder, descending the ladder. So if you imagine the top rung of the ladder is God, and the top rung also is the wood out of which the entire ladder is made. So the top rung is God, and the entire ladder itself as well. But imagine you're starting from the top. Involution is when you actually climb down and you become less whole, less infinite, less conscious. So you can imagine God as being infinitely conscious, infinitely whole, infinitely unified and integrated. But in order for God to create A human being, it needs to take a step down. It needs to stop being God. It needs to forget. It needs to trick itself. It needs to create separation. That's called involution. So instead of becoming more unified, we're actually becoming more separate. And that's how God creates reality, through this process of involution, becoming less conscious, less aware, more separated, more fearful, more hateful, more limited. And that's how you get human beings. That's how you get animals and trees and grass and all that stuff. It's God stepping down. Now remember, keep in mind that just because you're a human being, that doesn't mean that you're not God. You're just God pretending to not be God. And that's going to segue us into the next part of this video, which is where it gets extremely challenging and extremely existentially threatening. Because God uses the ego, which is you, whatever you think you are, you think you're a human being with a name and a form. God uses the ego as a tool so that it can experience life, so that it can experience sex and pizza, and it can play video games and go in the jungle and experience suffering and heartbreak and hurt. God uses the imaginary idea of separation in order to experience its own infinity manifested as finite forms. And in order for God to trick itself so deeply and so fundamentally, God geniusly, intelligently engineers the human mind, the ego's mind, with a whole long laundry list of defense mechanisms. These defense mechanisms are in place to prevent you from remembering your true nature, which is that you are God. You are the sole inhabitant of this universe. You are this universe. There are no other people outside of you. All other people occur within your consciousness and awareness because you are the creator. And the mechanism of creation is self-deception or ego defense mechanisms. So now I'm going to be sharing with you an extremely long laundry list of all of the ego defense mechanisms that God uses to trick itself into thinking that it is not God. And many of these ego defense mechanisms you can observe in your own mind, as I've observed in my mind. All of these ego defense mechanisms I've displayed in my own life. These are self-deceptions, self-trickery. God must trick itself to pretend to not be itself. And since God is infinite and omniscient and omnipotent, which means it's all-powerful, you can imagine how powerful these defense mechanisms are. They were literally engineered by God itself, by nature with a capital N, which is another word for God. All right. So literally what I'm saying at this point in the video is that you actually are God. And there are no other people. There is no external world that has created you. You have created the world through your imagination. You literally imagine that the world exists, and whichever way that you want to imagine that it exists, that's the way it exists for you. Have you ever seen people who are so bought into Christianity, and for them, Christianity is the one sole truth, the highest truth. From the outside perspective, these people look so deluded. It's like, really? Christianity? Really? We have the internet now. You can explore every single religion that has ever been made on earth, but you, for some reason, think that Christianity is the right one. All the other ones are wrong, but you just picked one of them, whichever one your mom told you to pick, whichever one your friends told you to pick. Then all of a sudden you think that's the only one that's right. So from the outside perspective, it seems so silly and stupid. But from the inside perspective, from the actual Christian's view, that is reality. Isn't it so amazing how deeply a human being can trick itself? And have you noticed that other human beings literally live in different realities based on what they believe and what they have imagined to be true? So whatever you imagine to be true, that becomes your reality. Why? Because you're God, and your mechanism of creation is imagination. Whatever you imagine is what becomes real for you. If you believe it fully, that is what becomes real for you. Now, there is this doubt, this reality where this is kind of like the consensus reality. So when you're born, what we're taught in our Western society is that you are a human being. Science is the arbiter of truth. All truth in the universe comes from just doing scientific experiments and listening to the scientists. You need to be good. You need to behave. You need to go to school. You need to get a job. The world is the Earth. It's rotating around the sun. We live in the Milky Way galaxy. So this is like the consensus reality that all of us have collectively imagined. This reality has no actual ground besides the fact that you have given it a ground. You've imagined it. All right. So we're going to cover this in more detail. Let's get into the list of defense mechanisms. The first way that God pretends to be the ego, that God pretends to be a separate self, is first and foremost through indoctrination from childhood. So when you're born, your mind is a blank slate. When a human baby is born, their mind will become whatever is taught to them. So if a human baby, let's say, is born on an alien planet in another galaxy, whatever that human baby thinks is real will be completely different than what a human baby on Earth will think is real. Because the mind is just a blank slate, and you can draw on it whatever you want. So whatever that baby is taught by its parents, by its teachers, by its friends, by TV advertisements, whatever that baby is taught is what will become that baby's reality. There's kind of like an imprinting process that happens. So if you've ever seen a baby duckling, the second they're born, what the duckling's mind does is it imprints on its mother. So whatever is nearest to it, which is usually its mother, it kind of sees it and automatically locks into its brain forever that this is my mother. And then it just follows it around. It's an imprinting process. The duckling isn't logically deciding that this is its mother. It's just a biological wiring. It imprints that it's its mother. And it's actually possible to get a duckling to imprint the wrong mother. There have been lab experiments where scientists actually get ducklings to imprint onto like a wire duck that doesn't even look anything like a duck. But that duckling will literally think that this piece of metal is its mother. It goes to show you how strong the biological imprinting process is. And human beings have this kind of imprinting process as well. And it's a lot more advanced. Human beings imprint worldviews and belief systems. So whatever is taught from when you're very young, when you're 2 or 3 years old, when you're taught what the world is, that locks into place. And once it locks into place, it gets buried very deep in your psyche, and then it's very difficult to dig in and uproot that. So most people have probably clicked off this video by now. And the reason why is because these ideas are so challenging and they go against your imprint. So you've been imprinted with an idea, on a belief system, and whenever someone comes in with an alternative belief system, maybe an alternative view of reality, like maybe everything is God and you're just God pretending to be a human, if someone comes with that alternative belief system, you're going to reject it and deny it out of hand immediately, just because it isn't in alignment with what you've been taught from birth. This is a very powerful mechanism that people take for granted. People think that Christianity is the one true religion, but they don't realize that it's because they were born in a Christian household that they think that. If they were born in the Middle East in a Muslim household, they would think that Islam is the one true religion. Or if they were born in Japan, they would think Japanese Shinto is the one true religion. All right, so the main way that God tricks itself is by imprinting from a very young age and locking in whatever's taught to it from a very young age. Now next, my favorite defense mechanism that I absolutely love to see in myself and also in other people as well is thinking that you already got the truth. Thinking that you already know what reality is, so there's no reason to think about it or contemplate it with any seriousness. This is the best one. The best one means this is my favorite one because I love to see this. The best way for God to prevent itself from realizing that it is God, so that the ego can stay alive, the best way for God to do that is to make the ego think that it already has the truth. Right? So when you're in high school, you there's no question about what reality is. It just is what everyone else thinks it is. Oh, it's, there's atoms, there's molecules, we live on Earth, we live on a 3-dimensional plane of existence in somehow, some way. There's the moon out there, there's the sun, right? So when you're young, when you're like 13, 14 years old, you're going to school. There's no question at all that reality might be something completely different than what you think it is. It just is what it is. You think you already got the truth. Even if you're not really sure where reality came from, you say to yourself, oh, eventually maybe science will figure it out, but right now I can't really know. So might as well just go to school, talk to girls, talk to guys, play video games, not think about it too much, because I already got the truth anyways, so there's no reason to think about it. Also, you see this a lot with, I've been ragging a lot on Christian people, so let's talk about scientific people now. You see this a lot with rational thinkers who are scientists, and they only want to entertain ideas that have scientific proof or evidence. And they think that that is the truth. It's not the truth. How do you know science is the truth? Did you derive the scientific method for yourself? Have you actually tested to see if the scientific method is the proper way to discover truth? Why are you so confident in the scientific method? Just because it's useful, it's pragmatic, we can use it to build rockets to fly to the moon, we can use it to create medicine, that doesn't necessarily mean that it tells you what the truth of existence is. The scientific method cannot discover the truth of existence because the scientific method is a relativistic method. We're only just measuring things. We're just making measurements. Science can't say what the universe is because whatever science is, imagine science says, oh, the universe is just monofilament strings, string theory. Okay, great, but what are those strings? Oh, those strings are made of energy. Okay, great, but what's energy? Where does it come from? We don't know. See, because science only works on the level of mind. It only works on the level of concepts. So when I'm talking about infinity and God, what I'm talking about something that's way beyond concepts. This isn't something to just believe what I'm saying. This is whatever is left when the mind is transcended. So if you can go beyond the mind, this is what will be left. Maybe. You got to see for yourself. All right. The next ego defense mechanism is the lack of curiosity. So just not being curious. This is you'll see this a lot in your parents. If you ever talk to your parents about spirituality or about these lofty philosophical concepts, you can tell they just genuinely don't give a shit. And this is one of the best ego defense mechanisms because if you just genuinely don't care about discovering what reality is, then you'll never discover it because you just don't care. At the end of the day, you would rather just smoke cigarettes and watch Netflix and eat pizza than, read a couple books and do contemplation, just because you just genuinely don't care. And this lack of curiosity comes from thinking that you already know what reality is, which you don't. So the best remedy to this defense mechanism here is to just look yourself in the mirror and just be very honest and say to yourself, I don't know what reality is. I have no clue at all. And not only do I have no clue, but I'm actually not even close. I don't even know where to start. This thing right here, existence, it's mysterious. It makes no sense. There's no logical reason why existence exists. It's a fucking mystery. And you have to become conscious of that. You can't take it for granted like 99% of people do. God designs the ego to take this stuff for granted so that it can remain the ego, so that it can never realize its true nature. Now, this is a huge one here. A giant ego defense mechanism is when the ego or you believe that reality is material, that reality is three-dimensional, that it has tangible existence, that reality is an actual physical system, and that it is outside of you. This is a giant deception. Thinking that reality is outside of your consciousness, or that it's outside of your mind, that it's out there, and you gotta go measure it, and you gotta go explore it, and you gotta fight with it. See, the world is not physical. Physical is an idea that is in the mind of God. Just like when you're in a dream, when you're dreaming at night, you think the dream is physical. But when you wake up, you realize that that physicality was just an apparent physicality. It only seemed physical. But really what physicality is just an idea. Now, that doesn't mean that you can go put your hand through a wall and pass your hand through a wall, because this this is how you have imagined reality to be. But remain open to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, if you are aware enough of what reality is, if your consciousness is high enough, if you have completely seen through the illusion of physicality, just maybe it's possible for a human being to pass through a physical object. Just maybe. I've read stories of Tibetan Buddhist masters who their disciples come up to them and they say, "Hey, master, I'm having a lot of trouble understanding this concept of emptiness, this concept of non-physicality. I'm having a lot of trouble understanding it." And the master, like I think this was Milarepa that did this, takes his hand, passes it through a solid pillar, and says, "Does that help?" And the disciple says, "Holy fuck, yes, that helped." So this is a story that, and I genuinely believe that for conscious enough human beings, it is possible to pass through physical objects. Just like in a dream, you can't walk through a wall in your dream. That's the point of the wall, that you've imagined you can't walk through it. That's why it seems physical. But if you go lucid, if you see that it's a dream, if you become conscious that the material of the dream is only made of your mind, then maybe you can walk through it. And sometimes maybe not. So the belief in the 3D world creates a lot of problems because now we think that we are just a stupid monkey that lives on Earth and that we have no business discovering the true nature of existence. In our Western materialistic paradigm, we genuinely believe that we're just stupid monkeys and that it's impossible for us to know these big existential questions like what is consciousness or what is reality, because we think that we're just dumb monkeys and that we need to treat the world as if it's physical, as if it's separate from us. But I highly recommend entertaining the possibility of direct realization, which is realizing that the world is actually you and that it is made of your mind. And that if you need to know something about the world, the answer is right here in your experience. You don't have to go out and grab a microscope, or you don't have to ask Jordan Peterson or some scientist or Elon Musk. You don't have to ask them what the answer is. You are God. So what the ego does is it gives its authority away to other sources. It says, oh, maybe the scientist will tell me what reality is. See, whatever that scientist tells you, you're not conscious that you are imagining that scientist. That scientist is just a character in your dream. Whatever that scientist tells you, you are God, so you choose to either accept it or reject it. That's your choice. You create reality. The scientist is made of you, just like a character in your dream is made of you. And this, it's so funny, like, sometimes I'll make a video like this and people will be like, Adam, like, what's your credibility? What's your authority? Like, are you even qualified to talk about reality? I say, yeah, I fucking am reality. I'm a fucking piece of reality. That's what I am. Of course I'm qualified to talk about reality. That being said, many people talk about reality and have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. So how do we judge what is true from what is false? Well, you are the creator of your God. I can't tell you something and then you trust me. If you ever think, well, is Adam just bullshitting me or is he being serious? Who knows? You have to discover it for yourself. So if I tell you something, reality is not physical, don't just believe me. You need to actually do an experiment, actually look at grab some kind of object, like a glass of water, and look at it. And actually try and see what I'm saying. Is it physical or is it not physical? Who knows? You have to look. You are God. Don't trust me. You're imagining me. I'm literally made of you. I'm in your mind right now. Whatever I tell you is just you telling yourself. Crazy. All right. The next ego defense mechanism is that the belief that science will eventually figure out all the answers. All we need to do is just make a powerful enough telescope. All we need to do is just do enough math equations, and then eventually we'll figure out the answer. I was watching a video today. It was a physicalistic, scientific explanation of what reality is, which, by the way, is like child's play. This explanation is totally unconscious. These scientists who are talking about what reality is, they have no idea what they're talking about because they're not conscious that they are God. They're thinking that they're just some stupid monkey and they're trying to discover what reality is by doing calculations. You can't calculate your way to God. You fucking are God. God is not a symbol. God is not you can't capture God in an equation. How are you gonna understand infinity by writing something down on a piece of paper? You have to become it. You have to become conscious of it. You have to realize it is what you are. It's your intrinsic nature. You have to be it. So I saw one of the comments on that scientific video. One of the comments was, man, I really hope that science figures out the answers to these questions one day. Because the video, what it always does is, what is reality? And then it takes you on a 30-minute journey of just like quarks and string theory and nonsense. And then at the end of the video, it's like, oh, but you know what? We don't really know. So it's like, okay, thank you for the 30-minute video. And then at the end of it, telling me that you don't really know what reality is. You could have just started with that. Us scientists have no clue what reality is. See, that would be a better video. It would take about 5 seconds to make. Right? That would actually be a more honest video. So someone in the comments is like, oh, I wish science figures this out in my lifetime. And I wish I could tell him, humans have figured out what reality is. We've actually figured it out for over 4,000 years, that probably even longer before that. If you look at the Vedas, the Upanishads, the ancient scriptures, you read them for yourself, they're telling you exactly what I'm telling you in this video. And these human beings that wrote the Upanishads, they're like 4,000 years old. We've known these truths. This non-duality, we've known it for so long. The problem is that it's very difficult to tell other people that they're God. It makes no sense because the purpose of their lifetime is to not be God. So that's why our society is structured in a way so that it constantly pulls your attention outwards, distracts you with Instagram models and TV and Netflix and tasty food. The point of society is to actually pull your attention outwards so that you never look inwards and realize that you're actually God and you're inventing the whole thing, because that's scary. You don't want to realize that. You as God actually want to be identified with an ego. That's why you've incarnated. But at the same time, you also want to remember your true nature, which is all of existence, which is right here, right now, right here, being. Now, this is a beautiful defense mechanism here. The belief that it's impossible to know. Oh, it's impossible to know. We can't know. It's impossible. Oh, yeah? How do you know that? Did you actually go out and search every single corner of the universe? Did you actually go read every single book that has ever been written and then after that decide that it's impossible to know? No, of course you didn't do that. You just assumed that it's impossible to know. That's a very dangerous assumption, because what if it is possible to know? Then you're fucked. You fucked yourself. It's a very risky assumption to make. All right, the next defense mechanism is ideology and paradigm lock. So this one is very deep. I can talk about this one for 2 hours. But basically, the ego uses beliefs and ideology as a way to lock itself into one way of thinking. So these ideologies like Christianity or like Buddhism or like these conspiracy theories like QAnon or like the Red Pill movement or MGTOW or whatever, the leftists, the conservatives, the radical socialists, whatever. These are all examples of ideologies. And what it is, an ideology is basically a system of beliefs that is self-referential and self-contained and is also self-justifying as well. So every single ideology, regardless of which one you're in, it seems like it is the truth. So if I'm in the Christian bubble, Christianity seems like the truth. If I'm in the right conservative bubble, that seems like the truth. If I'm in the leftist, new age spirituality bubble, then that seems like the truth. And don't confuse what I'm saying here in this video with new age spirituality. It's not. This is... So, ideology and paradigm lock is basically when your mind traps itself into one way of thinking and then never ventures outside of that worldview. So if you want to break down your ideology, your worldview, and you want to escape the trap of your bubble, your paradigm, some of the best ways to do that is to go travel to different countries, talk to people of different ethnicities, ask them what they believe. Keep an open mind, read different books from different perspectives. If you're a Christian, go read 10 Muslim books. If you're a Hindu, go read some Buddhist books. If you're a scientist, go read some New Age books. If you're a New Ager, go read some scientific books. Go read some mystical books. And this, what this will do is this will kind of loosen the lock of that bubble. This will start to poke holes in that bubble so that you can expand your perspective, so that you can zoom out more and more and more and more. And as you zoom out more and more and more, it's a lot easier to have higher consciousness, higher awareness, and to realize the true nature of reality, which is that you're God. So staying in one worldview is a big trap. Also, ignorance is a big trap. Just not even knowing that this is a possibility. Not even knowing about this stuff. So this video here is a good remedy to ignorance, because I'm telling you what it is. This is what it is. Now you're not ignorant. Now you know. Most people just don't know. They just don't even know that. A lot of people want to discover the true nature of reality. A lot of people really genuinely care about this. But there's just not enough resources out there to help them. There's just not enough talk about this. They're not going to hear this on the news. They're not going to hear this from their friends, so they just live their whole life in ignorance. They never even hear about meditation or about spirituality. They never even hear about it. Also, denial is the next ego defense mechanism. So just good old-fashioned denial. Just, nope, that's not true. Nope, I won't even consider that. Yeah, you ever talk to someone and they just deny you outright? It's like, nope. It's like, wait, man, I have a reason. Nope, not that. Denial is just like, you hear what I'm saying, but you just deny it. Just denial. And that also leads us into self-justification, which is such a powerful mechanism. It's so amazing how the human being has the potential to self-justify any action. The human being can literally murder 1 million people and still justify it to itself as if it's okay. So if, let's say you in 5 minutes, let's say you get sick of something I say and you shut the video off and you say, Adam, it's all bullshit. Your mind will justify to you why that was a good decision. So, oh, this video's too long. I'm busy anyways. Adam, he's too young, so he can't know any type of existential truth because he's just too young. He's gone off the deep end. All he does is just listen to spiritual teachers and he just copies them. He doesn't really know what he's talking about. See, your mind will just come up with any reason to not listen to what I'm saying. What I'm saying here has nothing to do with Adam. It has nothing to do with me. It has to do with you realizing that I am you. That's what it has to do with. It doesn't have to do with me. It has to do with you. You see that? Let me check how much memory is on my card here. All right, we're good. We got plenty of time. All right, so the next ego defense mechanism is distractions. And this one is so powerful because our entire society, as I've mentioned before, is literally made of distractions. So the ego has geniusly designed society so that your attention is constantly focused outwards, so that you get bored in 6 seconds. You can't sit down in a room by yourself and just do nothing. You constantly crave stimulation of some kind of video games or Facebook and porn or whatever. And not only are those things distractions, obviously video games and Facebook are distractions, but also the other distractions which other people don't even consider distractions are the big distractions, like your university degree, or like raising your family, or like going to work, or building your business, making money, or having sex, having an intimate relationship. See, those are the real distractions. Leo from actualize.org has an awesome video called Distraction, the ego's favorite defense mechanism. And I borrow some of those ideas here when I talk about distraction because I love the way he explains it. He says, if you're distracted, you're not going to be distracted by some frivolous thing like Facebook or video games. You're going to be distracted by the most fucking important thing. Like your job, your parents, your family, your career, your education. Those are the things that are going to distract you. And distract you from what? Distract you from turning inwards and realizing the true nature of existence, that all of reality is just made of your own imagination, your own mind. You are God's mind imagining reality. Also, addictions. That's a big defense mechanism. Many people will never be able to discover the true nature of reality just because they're too damn addicted to food, drugs, sex. And not just those addictions, those are very powerful, but even addictions such as validation, hanging out with your friends, thinking all the time, listening to music too much. See, your mind just gets so addicted, gets so twisted and fucked up, and you become a pleasure junkie that never are you going to be able to sit down and meditate for 5 minutes. It's going to be impossible. Also, another self-deception is language bias. So assuming that if the truth did exist, then I should be able to just tell you what it is in a video. I should be able to just explain it easily in a couple sentences. I should be able to just tell you what the truth is. And we assume that language is like some kind of tool that can explain every single thing. But there are some things in reality that are beyond language, such as the color red. Can you explain what the color red is to a blind person who has never seen the color red before? If you try and do that, you will quickly see the limitations of the English language or any language. Language cannot explain what an experience is. The only way to know what an experience is to have the experience. Regardless of how many descriptive words that you use, none of that can come close to explaining actual reality, which is right here in your experience, which is completely beyond language. Notice that this present moment here can't be explained by language. It just is existence. It is what it is. It is here now. You know it's here because you're listening to me here now and you're aware. And that's it. I can't explain what it is to you. It just is what it is. And in the same way, the truth, God, is what it is. Can't be explained by language. It just is what it is. Next, one of my favorites is rationality and proof bias. So this is thinking that, okay, sure, Adam, if whatever you're saying is true, if what you're talking about, God creates the universe through imagining that it's not God, sure. If what you're saying is true, why is it that you have no proof? You should be able to prove it scientifically. You should be able to prove it rationally. And really, I'm doing my best to explain this in a rational, logical way. Because I'm a very rational, logical person. I like things to make sense in my mind. However, there are different types of logic. So what you think is logical to you isn't logical to me. But what's logical to me isn't logical to you. There's no such thing as one logic that you can use to explain everything. There's different kinds of logic. Right? To a Christian person, I ask, hey, how do you know that God exists? He says, oh, well, it's in the Bible. Okay, but how do you know the Bible is true? Well, it's like, oh, the Bible's the holy book. God wrote the Bible. Okay, so to the Christian person, that makes perfect logical sense. But to me, that makes no logical sense at all. So that just goes to show you that logic is a relative thing. My logic is different from your logic. And I'm trying my best to demonstrate what my logic is so that perhaps you can understand it. But also, talking about proof, how the fuck are you going to derive a scientific experiment that proves that reality is made of God's consciousness? That reality is made of your consciousness because you are God. How are you going to prove that scientifically? What are you gonna write a paper about it? Are you gonna have a double-blind study and get it peer-reviewed by the other scientists? If you write a fucking paper that is talking about what I'm talking about in this video here, and you try and submit that to like MIT or Harvard or something, try and get that peer-reviewed, your paper, not only will it get shredded, but you will probably lose your job. So if I'm some kind of professional thinker, like a university professor or something like that, and I want to talk about these topics, I can't even do it because I will be discredited. My name will be smeared. I'll lose my job for talking about this stuff. Because it's radical, it's crazy, it's insane. And what else would you expect? Would you expect the truth to be sane? Would you expect the truth to be acceptable? Would you accept it? Would you think that the truth is obvious? That it's simple? After all, reality itself is a magical miracle. The fact that anything exists at all is astounding. So the explanation for reality, do you think it would be simple, or it would be obvious, or it would be acceptable that once we figured it out, everyone would just agree? No, of course not. This reality here is a miracle, and you would have to assume that whatever is causing this reality to exist here must also be a miracle. It must be insane. It must be crazy. Also, crazy is relative. What's crazy to me might not be crazy to you, right? To me, blindly trusting in scientists who clearly have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to the metaphysical questions, to me that's crazy to trust them as if they know more than you because they can use telescopes. That's crazy to me to do that. But to other people, practicing meditation and investigating and contemplating in your own direct experience to actually get to the heart of what experience is made of, to me that seems to make a lot of sense. But to other people, that seems crazy. So who's right? Who knows? All right, the next ego defense mechanism is confusing the map for the territory. And what this means is that thinking that my model of reality actually is reality. So imagine you had a map of a forest. That map isn't the forest itself, it's just a representation of the forest. It's not the actual forest. Imagine thinking that the actual map is the forest. That would be a huge blunder. Thinking that your model of reality is actually reality. Many scientists fall into this trap. They model reality. They come up with numbers and equations and graphs and all kinds of models and maps, symbols, and they actually start to believe that equation actually is what reality is. They actually think that reality actually is an equation, or that somehow that this equation is one of the rules of the universe. It's fucking bullshit. It's nonsense. All that equation is just your human pattern recognition abilities able to trying to make sense of what is going on here in the infinite mystery of the present moment. The universe doesn't follow your equations. You have made the equations in an attempt to measure some aspect of reality. But then the scientists think that the equation itself actually is reality. That the equation somehow is like true, and that the equation has been here since the beginning of time. No, the equation, you just made it up. It hasn't been here since the beginning of time. You invented it. Confusing the map for the territory. Thinking that what you think reality is what reality actually is. But let me tell you this. What you think reality is not what reality is. Because reality cannot be thought. So if you have a story, a concept of what reality is, it's automatically not that. So if you have some kind of people, sometimes they reach out to me, they're like, Adam, you got to read this book. You know, it's got 63 volumes and it's so dense, and it's some guy proving God mathematically. Like, okay, good, great. But like, this book isn't the truth. It's an approximation, a symbolic representation of the truth. But the truth itself is right here. It's right here. All right. The next ego defense mechanism is being too afraid to self-reflect, too lazy to self-reflect, too bored and too tired. So this is a big one. Now, one of the main ways that God pretends to be an ego is that it injects a bunch of fear into its own mind, and it becomes scared of doing self-reflection because it feels like death. So if at any point in this video you felt uncomfortable, you felt a little bit weirded out, then that's just your defense mechanism working perfectly. That feeling of being a little bit scared or feeling afraid of what this video means, yeah, you should be. It's threatening to the ego. It questions what is commonly held to be true. So these emotions like fear, laziness, boredom, these are amazing ways for your mind to control you, to keep you in a state of lower consciousness, to keep you from discovering the truth. Now, another amazing defense mechanism is hating on other people. So actually demonizing or hating other groups or other people. This is a big one. Whenever you hate another person, you're not being conscious that that person is just a character in your own dream, and that your mind is imagining that character, and that ultimately is a part of you. So by hating Muslims or by hating feminists, really what you're doing is you're just hating your own mind. You're hating yourself. You've created them. And then you hate your own creation. That makes no sense. Why would you do that? The reason why you do that is because you're just not conscious enough. And I see this in myself all the time. I find myself hating other people. And in that moment, I try my best to just realize whatever I'm hating is my thing. It has nothing to do with them. It has to do with me imagining that they are not me. So if I hate my girlfriend, I forgot that my girlfriend is actually just an extension of me, is me. If I'm in a state of union, if I'm conscious of my own true nature, it's impossible to hate anyone. Because it's just love. It's just like, this fucking universe is magnificent. It's beautiful. It's all made of me. I love it. Even the bad stuff. Even the terrorists. Even the racists. Even the criminals. They're so amazing. So awesome. People always think I'm weird whenever we're talking about some kind of taboo subject like terrorists or something like that. The common response is just to hate them. It's like, yeah, those terrorists are so bad. Yeah, those capitalists, those greedy, those right wingers, they're so bad. And me, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, yeah, they're awesome. It's so interesting to see what's going on there. I said, what do you mean they're awesome? They're bad. Like, no, they're not bad. They're interesting. They're beautiful. They are an awesome expression of God. You know how much you can learn about the universe just by studying the mind of a terrorist or of a right-winger or a conservative or of a Christian fanatical zealot? It's actually a beautiful part of reality. You get to really appreciate the beauty of these egotistical defense mechanisms. You get to see the ingeniousness of their design by seeing how well they function in other people. The next ego defense mechanism is ignoring metaphysics. So metaphysics, what that word actually means is beyond physics or beyond the physical. Meta actually means beyond, and it means higher. It's actually more aware. So metaphysics, what that means is that we are studying what physics cannot study. We're going beyond what can be proven by a scientific experiment. Many scientists will say, oh, metaphysics, that stuff is not important. Leave that to the hippy-dippy philosophy majors. We'll let them sit in their armchairs and argue about metaphysics, even though none of it can be scientifically proven. We'll let them argue about whatever they think is true, the idealists, the materialists. We'll just let them argue. But really, us scientists, we're very practical. We don't want to worry about those intangible like woohoo ideas that the philosophers are talking about. We don't want to listen to them. We're just gonna put our nose down and do our calculations, do our experiments. We don't need to even think about metaphysics. That's a huge trap, because whenever you're doing any kind of science, you are making all kinds of metaphysical assumptions. So if I'm studying a leaf, I can't ignore metaphysics, because metaphysics is always running in the background. You think reality is something that is your metaphysics. So if you don't pay attention to metaphysics, what you will get by default is a really sloppy, shallow, unconscious metaphysics that you blindly absorb from culture, which is what most scientists are using in order to do their experiments. A very sloppy metaphysics, where they think reality is some kind of physical sandbox that's made of atoms. It's made of quarks. Okay, sure, maybe quarks are real, but are you conscious that quarks are just an idea in your mind? That's just an imaginary category that you've projected onto pure experience? If you are aware of that, then your scientific experiments will actually go a lot more smoothly, and there will be a lot less hiccups in the way. If science wants to discover what a leaf is, I saw a video today, it was like, it was a scientist talking about string theory. He was like, if I want to discover what this orange is, I just got to zoom in further and see what it's made of. It's like, why did you assume that you have to zoom in? Why does zooming in make it easier to see what it's made of? What if it's possible to see what it's made of just by looking at it? What if you can look at an orange? I don't have an orange on me, but imagine I have an orange in my hand. If you can look at the orange and see its substance without zooming in, just by looking at it and by contemplating and becoming conscious of it. Why would zooming in give you any more information? All you're doing is just cutting it in half and getting more surfaces. And you're cutting the surface, you're just breaking everything down into smaller and smaller parts. But what's the smallest part? The strings? The string theory, the monofilament strings that are made of energy? Okay, what is that made of? Equations? What are those made of? See? You can't just zoom in and get the answer to an existential question, which is, what is this orange? You need to look with consciousness and awareness that you can only develop through meditation practice and through having direct experience. All right, another big ego defense mechanism is guilt and shame. shaming yourself for being a bad person, for being a bad boy, for being guilty, a bad girl. A lot of us absorb a lot of guilt and shame from our parents, from our teachers. They tell us that we're very bad, and then our whole lives we're living thinking that we're bad people and that we don't deserve love. One of my deepest awakenings that I've ever had was when I was contemplating on LSD, and I was also reading A Course in Miracles, which the main path towards enlightenment that they tell you to do is to surrender all of your guilt and your shame and to forgive yourself deeply. And I talk about that in my video with my LSD trip report, where you realize that it is actually impossible for you to do anything wrong. The idea of right and wrong, that is, it's a category. It's made by the mind. It has no ground. What's right for him is wrong for her. And what's right for that guy is wrong for that girl. And what's right for that deer is wrong for that fish. It's relative. There's no such thing as right and wrong. Whatever you do in your life, you're just doing the best with what you got. And the ultimate way to go beyond guilt and shame, which I'm going to make a whole video about in the future, the ultimate way to go beyond it is to forgive yourself. And the way you forgive yourself is not by forgiving yourself for doing a bad thing. You don't forgive yourself by saying, oh, I did something really bad, but I guess we can let it slide this time. That's not true forgiveness. True forgiveness is realizing that nothing bad has ever been done or is even possible to do. True forgiveness comes from realizing that you have created the entire universe exactly as it is. True forgiveness is realizing that reality as you think it is an illusion, and that nothing is ever wrong. That's forgiveness. The next ego defense mechanism is mental masturbation, which is one that I definitely fall into a lot. Many scientists and intellectual people fall into this problem where there is way too much time being spent in concept land, where these people who they major in philosophy, where all they do is just read books at the library, and they just read book after book after book, and they just think of concepts and ideas, and they just compare ideas and concepts, and then they debate and they argue about it. That's called mental masturbation, and in a lot of cases, it just leads you in circles. Which is why a lot of intellectual people who are so smart, they've read thousands of books. A lot of these people have no idea what reality actually is. They're not even near the truth. And the reason why is because this is an ego defense mechanism. God actually has designed your mind. You are God. You've designed your own mind so that you can run in circles forever, intellectualizing, conceptualizing, thinking, doing armchair philosophy, but never actually penetrating to the core of what a thought actually is. In order to do that, you need to go beyond thoughts, beyond the mind, through meditation or contemplation or psychedelics or something like that, which I talk about in other videos. All right, the next ego defense mechanism is holding body tension. So whenever the body is tense and tight, that is actually you holding yourself as separate from the rest of reality. Body tension, what it is it's actually resistance to the present moment. And if you want to realize yourself as God, what you need to do is surrender to the present moment, which I talk about in my video, How to Practice Surrender. Next, another giant ego defense mechanism is the conflict of interest, which means that you don't actually realize that it is actually against your interests to discover what the truth actually is. It doesn't help you. Discovering what the truth actually is, that actually goes against your survival agenda. In order for you to continue existing in the same way that you always have been and live your life, pretend to be a character, hang out with your friends, be accepted by the crowd, in order to do that, you need to not think of any of the stuff that I just talked about in this video. There's a conflict of interest there. Realizing that you are the sole creator of existence, that goes against maybe what your business is. Maybe your business is about selling tobacco or selling guns. If you realize you are God, you're probably going to want to stop selling guns, because that's not a very loving and compassionate thing to do. It's just adding more suffering to the world. It's not necessary. You don't want to kill other people. Those people are you. You kill other people, it's like killing yourself. Why would anyone kill themselves? Right? So if what I'm saying here, you need to recognize that it sometimes it conflicts against what you want to be true. So maybe you're 50 years old and you're watching this video. Obviously, you probably didn't get this far into the video, but let's say by some miracle you did. Realize that what I'm saying here might make you realize that what you've believed for your whole life is completely wrong. Completely wrong. How can a human being even admit to themselves that for 50 years, what they thought reality is nowhere even close to what reality actually is? The last ego defense mechanism that we're going to be talking about today is the pragmatism bias, or what will the truth do for me practically? This bias says, Adam, okay, sure, nice video with all your philosophy, whatever, cool, I'm God, whatever. But how is this content going to help me make more money? Or how is it going to help me get more sex? Or how is it going to help me be more popular in my workplace or in my school? And this is a very sneaky one that a lot of people use. Whenever I start talking about metaphysics or philosophy, a lot of people kind of just wave their hand and say, oh, that's not very important for me because it's not very practical. I can't make money with these lofty ideas. Well, the answer to this question is the truth will not help your ego, because by definition the truth is about the annihilation of the ego. The truth is about destroying the ego. So how do you expect the truth to help your ego make more money, or help it get more sex, or help it be more popular? It won't. It can't. The truth is in the opposite direction of the ego's agenda. The ego wants money and sex and fame. The truth wants to tell the ego that it doesn't even exist. How can the truth help your ego? Now, on the other hand, the truth will help you immensely, but it won't help your ego, it will help you. It will help what you actually are. It will help you, as God, be conscious of yourself in your full glory and majesty. It will help you live as a more compassionate and loving human being. When you discover the truth, you live differently. You see reality differently. Everything is different. Nothing is ever the same anymore. It helps you step out of the cycle of suffering. Most people's lives is just running around in circles, chasing their tail, trying to achieve things and get things done. When you step out of that cycle of dissatisfaction, always chasing satisfaction out there in the future, and you realize that you are the actual source of creation, it's a very blissful state of being. This is the end of chasing. It's the end of seeking, the end of suffering, the end of hating other people, the end of insecurity. Why would you be insecure if you are the only being in existence? Why would you be afraid of what other people think of you if you realize you actually are other people? This is enlightenment. This is the realization of your true nature as God. And no, it's not very useful for your ego, but it is very useful for all of existence. It's useful for God. It's useful for you. It's useful for all of being to realize what you actually are. All right? And with that, I'm going to be wrapping up this video. This was how God creates reality. Wow. What intense video. We covered all these ego defense mechanisms. This is not an exhaustive list of all the possible ego defense mechanisms. That would probably take 4 or 5 hours to cover, and even then, we would still probably only be scratching the surface. These defense mechanisms were the most important ways that God tricks itself into thinking that it is a separate self. And a bonus ego defense mechanism that I'm going to add here is just forgetting. Just plain old just forgetting. There was a story that in the Quran, I've never actually read the Quran, I don't know if this is true or not, but there was allegedly a story about the angel Gabriel came to Muhammad, and Muhammad said, okay, how many times should I pray? And the angel said, you should pray 1,000 times per day. And Muhammad was like, okay, you got to be kidding me. How am I going to pray 1,000 times per day? I'll have no time left to do anything else. And apparently there was some kind of negotiation process, and eventually both of them settled on 5 times a day as being enough, which is why Muslim people pray 5 times every single day. Why is that? So that you don't forget. So that you don't forget your true nature. You don't forget what we talked about here in this video. Really, the main practice here is just remembering, first of all, getting a glimpse for yourself through some kind of meditation, contemplation, psychedelics, some kind of practice. You need to get the glimpse for yourself. You need to see what I'm saying is actually true and isn't just an idea or philosophy, but this is the case. And then once you've had that, now it's about remembering, and it's about cultivating the awareness and the focus to always be paying attention to your true nature as God, to always remember that the present moment is made of you. And that being said, I think that's all I have to say here. This was how God creates reality. God creates reality by just pretending that it is not God. And then reality is created through ideas and concepts and imagination. You imagine reality exists. That's why it exists. Because you are the creator. Alright, so that's all I have to say here. If you enjoyed this video and you watched all the way to the end, then you've unlocked a secret achievement on the Miceli channel. Congratulations. If you leave a rainbow emoji in the comment section, that will tell me that you watched the video all the way through. And I love seeing that because it just inspires me. It makes me feel like people are actually watching what I'm putting out there. and that's good. So that's good feedback for me just by leaving a rainbow. That means good job, Adam. And I'll give you a nice little heart in the comment section, and that's all you got. The secret achievement for watching this video all the way through. If you stay tuned, I have more videos on the way. This last week I took a little break because I tried to film a video of me tripping live on magic mushrooms, and it didn't really come out the way I wanted it to. I already knew this, but like it's almost impossible to communicate a magic mushroom trip while you're tripping. So I actually have clips of myself talking to the camera, explaining my God consciousness, which is I actually glimpsed like I was conscious that I am God, and I'm trying to explain it to the camera, but I'm using all kinds of like metaphors and analogies, and it's kind of hard to follow. If that's something that you want to see, then maybe I'll upload it. Let me know in the comments if that's something you want to see. I decided not to upload it because it's just I didn't really get all the clips. It's kind of hard to explain. It's really weird. I have really weird energy because I'm peaking on 3.5 grams of mushrooms, so my energy is all like sometimes I'm yelling and screaming, and I'm just too violent sometimes, like with the way I'm talking, and just because there's just so much energy, I'm so excited, and it's hard to make a video if you're not sober, obviously. So yeah, let me know if you want to see that. Otherwise, I have some awesome content on the way. I'm going to be making part 2 to my video, getting crystal clear about what you want in your life. So if you watched that video and it helped you clarify your core purpose or what you want out of your life, then in part 2, which will be coming out shortly, is going to be about creating an actual pragmatic plan, step by step, for how to strategize your efforts towards achieving your lofty vision or your lofty dream. That involves creating habits and backwards reverse engineering from your goal and reverse engineering a practical plan to get there. A lot of awesome content there. I learned most of this information from just reading books, getting life coaches for myself, and also studying and learning and becoming a life coach for myself. So this is the process that I take all my clients through, and I've been getting some amazing results, and so have my clients. So if that's something that interests you, then stay tuned for that next video, or you can talk to me one-on-one, where you can just reach out to me, send me a DM on Instagram, and we'll have a one-on-one conversation where I can help you clarify exactly what it is that you want. Besides that, I'm going to be continuing my Spiral Dynamics series. Stage Purple is in the works. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something useful from it. And stay tuned for more content on the way. Thank you so much for watching. Share this video with a friend if you liked it. It helps the channel grow. And I'll see you in the next video.